Okay, welcome everyone, and this is the Up Your Game webcast. My name is Phil Bright. I'm a business coach and management consultant. I have an MBA, certified in various assessments, and I've got a long history of managing products, product lines, groups of people, and companies. During that time, I've learned that people and how to manage yourself as a leader, as a person in charge of projects, whatever role you're playing is crucial in this whole process. So I'd like to share some of my insights. For the people that are just joining, this is Phil Bright. We're just getting started with Up Your Game webcast. So as we go through this presentation, I'm going to be talking about three things. Obstacles faced by professionals, specifically professionals in offices and dealing with all the stuff that happens in a company, large or small. There's lots of obstacles out there, and how do you deal with them? Next section will be finding out really where you stand in dealing with these obstacles. And we'll do a quick exercise on how to identify what your personal challenges are, maybe your strengths and attitudes that maybe hold you back. The last part is tools to up your game. Some tools that can help you get control back. Whether you're an official leader or not, we're all leaders. And we'll talk about that. At the end, for those who are interested, I do have an offer. But for those who are interested, please hang around. It's short, to the point, and I think you would like to at least hear what I have to say. So the first section is obstacles. And what obstacles are we talking about? There's a whole set of typical obstacles that people face during their workday as a professional. The first ones that people that I talk to often tell me is, how do you deal with difficult people? Second one is, there's too many projects. It's an onslaught, incoming all the time, and it's overwhelming. Another one is too much change for no reason. It's like we're changing for change's sake. There's no to it. It doesn't seem like. We'll talk about approaches to dealing with these obstacles. Maybe there's mixed messages or unrealistic deadlines or goals even. No clarity in the direction. No direction at all. Maybe there's just direction is not communicated at all. And of course, all this leads to time pressures that we all feel at various points in time through this process. When people get stuck and just really don't know how to deal with it, and I'm not talking about the easy obstacles that we deal with day in and day out. I'm talking about the sticky ones, the ones that we just can't seem to get over. Those are the obstacles that matter, and that's really what I'm talking about. So when people get stuck behind these obstacles, motivation stalls out, maybe not sure about the next step, can't decide which way to go, what the next step is, what the direction we should take. People start hating work, hating life, but that starts to happen. The blame game starts. All of a sudden, it's not my fault. Someone else is doing something, the situation is doing something to me, to my situation. Start to happen, or this list down below, don't feel engaged, follow distractions, all that stuff starts to happen. For us as professionals, these are red flags that something's not quite right. We're not dealing with something in our career, in our profession quite right the way we need to have a positive effect. So those are what happens when red flags like that pop up, you bounce around. People bounce around from project to project. More than likely, this starts to happen. Everything's number one priority. Who has felt that everything on their priority list is number one? My hand's up on my to-do list, and every one of those was number one priority. What a mistake, and that's not the way to deal with it. Meetings, oh my gosh. Meetings, requests coming in, issues, various issues, new projects, problems, and personal demands. All this stuff can cause us to bounce around if we don't up our game and really get in control of our domain. The response is often, oh my gosh, let's get moving, let's work harder, let's dive into what we already know. And that's okay, but there's a better way. The better way is to get gritty and push into new arenas, areas where it might be slightly out of our comfort zone. And we can do that with self-evaluation, planning, getting some structures around us. Even if we're not the ones in charge, putting some structures that we like around ourselves and getting some sense of control over what we can control, and then executing on those. Communication. Communication always starts with us. Even if somebody is not communicating to me very well, it's on me to increase and improve that communication through understanding and listening. If we can get all this in place, our own motivations move up because we start to feel like we're more in control. So to get in control, up your game once and for all. We could feel like we're in a pressure cooker, always in firefighting mode, fixing other people's problems. By the way, that's one of my issues. If somebody comes to me with a problem, I will jump on it. In fact, my youngest is like, Dad, hey, can you fix this issue I have? Oh, sure. It's like, no, that's your issue. If you're fixing other people's problems, that doesn't leave enough time for yourself. And if you start to fall into these traps, your personal life starts to suffer. The alternative is to get in control, manage your time well, get on top of projects, and you start to get a life-work balance. All easy to say, a little more challenging to actually do. Let's talk about what are the steps in doing that and doing it well. So the second section is let's find out where you stand. Let's kind of go through some of the steps on how to identify where you stand in all this. First of all, I came across this quote. Running a business is the greatest self-improvement exercise you can ever go on. The real statement is running a project, a team, a family is the greatest self-improvement exercise you can ever go on. And the reason why that's true is every weakness will be put under a microscope. Anybody run a project and take initiative, have a family, that is self-improvement exercise. And it's time to pay attention because it's a growth period for us. What happens along the way when we take on projects, and let's step back a little bit here. This is an interesting process. We always start out being highly optimistic. A new project, new environment, we're excited to get going. Yeah, let's make this thing happen. And then we move into a very pragmatic aspect of things where we start to say, okay, yes, we can make things happen, but let's be pragmatic and get the scope right. We're doing it right, and we can actually achieve something. Realism starts to pop in. It's like, okay, yes, let's be realistic about it. That doesn't work. That hasn't worked. Start to get history lessons of all the things that didn't work. Here's where the danger zones happen. If we become too caught up in history lessons and what happened in the past, and we've got to be realistic, we start to fall into the next step, which is pessimism. That'll never work, can't do it, nothing has ever succeeded before, and then attitudes start to go south. It can happen to the best of us. It does happen to everyone who steps out and takes initiative and things outside of their comfort zone. Happens to all of us. The question then becomes, what do you do about it? And what kind of leader are you? Everybody's a leader in one way or another, whether you are officially a leader and have a staff or not. If you're taking initiative, working with other people, you are a leader because you're doing things, you're leading yourself first, you're leading your family, your group. That is an excellent perspective to take for every one of us, no matter what role we're in, because, first of all, it's empowering. It puts us in the control seat, and we start to take a different perspective of life and our profession and where we're going. So the question now is, what kind of leader are you? An aspiring leader, an achieving leader, have lots of ideas, motivated, want to achieve, see possibilities, all that good stuff. An achieving leader is somebody who is able to execute to a plan, overcoming those obstacles, building teamwork, making things happen in a big way. The reality is, even the best leaders fall down into the fog bank every once in a while, and they suffer from one or more, or sometimes all of these things. We become stuck. We crash. Projects fail. Something big just does not work out. Maybe we become overwhelmed with all these things happening, and we could become lost, not sure what the next step is and where we want to go next. And maybe we're just floating along, which is the floating leader is somebody who just kind of gave up and said, oh, I'll go wherever this happens to flow and just kind of go along with it. The big thing with being a leader for yourself, for a group, for a family, for a social environment, to understand that, yes, we all will go down into the fog bank. Recognize that you're in there and climb back out as fast as possible. The more we recognize it, the more we can go down into it and cycle back up as fast as we can. Go through aspiring and then back into achieving leaders. So the key is to recognize it, identify it, stare it down, and start to climb back out as fast as possible. Whatever you do, don't get stuck. Some of the best friends, best mentors, and coaches I've had have taken me and, come on, get back up, start aspiring again, get going. And we all need that every once in a while. So what is your out-of-control mode? We're going to take a minute, go through some of the out-of-control categories, and then we'll take a minute and you can, what it is for you. Is it that you have no clear direction? People tend to keep their heads down, stay in their comfort zone, so you don't rock the boat, and that's from no clear direction. Maybe things are not organized in your profession, maybe somewhere else, your social life, whatever it is. That leads to chasing latest praise, maybe at the end of the day going, wow, what did I accomplish today? I was crazy busy all day today, and at the end of the day, I don't feel like I actually accomplished anything, which leads to no time, don't feel like I have any time left. I'm exhausted, don't know what's expected. That leads to not sure what to work on, don't rock the boat, maybe work on other stuff. Get focused on something at least, get busy. That's where we don't really know what's expected. Maybe there's a poor self-image going on. Attitude sink, feeling defeated, victimized by others, or victimized by situations. No balance in life, high stress, low energy. All this leads to poor motivation in ourselves. Okay, dealt with early on, or is, the best time to deal with it is immediately when it shows up. The second best time to deal with these is today, because all this leads to stress. And we know that stress leads to all kinds of things we don't like. What I want to do is stop here for a moment. I want you to take out a piece of paper, notes, and identify one area in particular that is your out-of-control mode, and identify the various aspects of that. Identify it first on this chart, write what it is about that area of out-of-control mode, and just describe it in as much detail as you feel you need. Normally, I wait for people to start putting the pens down or look up from their computers. Since I can't see that, I'm going to assume most of you have at least a start of it. Keep it in front of you and close by, because we're going to cycle back in a few minutes later in this webcast and address it and give you tools and some ideas to how to address it. Okay, let's move on. For those who are interested, I do have a special offer at the end of this webcast. Special workshop to develop the skills around setting direction, communicating with difficult people, decision-making, and time management. If you want to stick around at the very end, I'll let you know, and let's move on. So let's dive into tools that help. With the right tools to help you through this process means you have your ducks in a line, and things start to happen for you. You have confidence in your direction, know how to prioritize. And what is prioritizing? It's making decisions. Harvard Business Review talks often about how even top management, the most successful people in the world, have difficulty prioritizing. So don't feel bad if that's an issue you deal with. If you can do it well, kudos and good job. For the rest of us who struggle with it, it becomes a big deal to really get a handle on it, which is tied very tightly to making the big decisions with confidence, knowing that you're making the decision and stop second-guessing yourself. Then you know how to deal with obstacles, able to communicate with difficult people, which is always a challenge. Understand how to delegate to those who don't report to you. Now, that's a big one. People don't report to you. How do you delegate effectively? And so that they feel good about working with you and participating in what you're doing. Knowing the basics of successful sales without selling. How much does your personal life affect your work? In my profession, when I started, especially taking on management roles, I was often told, separate your personal life from your professional life. Keep those separate to keep your sanity. I've come to conclude that that is not true. It takes too much energy to separate personal from work life. Sometimes we simply have to. It really relies on these two tracks, professional life and personal life. The more aligned, the better we will feel going through our lives. So now let's get to the core of this. These are the tools that really make a difference in what you can use to build this personal command center to get in control and up your game. Know your values. Know your values extremely well. The values are things that you hold most dearly to you. They direct how we make decisions, our subconscious and our conscious decisions throughout the day. If you find yourself ranting about something, just kind of upset, somebody did something and you're ranting, that's a value that got stomped on. When you feel yourself doing that, take a moment and dive down into what is the core behind that rant. That identifies a key value. How many have written down their values so they have a succinct list of them? Bigger question, how much do those values that you've written down align with your rant joys, that you just feel like everything is honored about you and what you believe in? If they're aligned well, you've got your values nailed. If they're not, take time to do it. This is usually not a 10-minute, hour, afternoon exercise. Somebody who has those really well aligned has taken some time and really worked on it. The reason why it's so important is because our big decisions and our little decisions depend very carefully on our values, how much we feel stressed during the day, how much we feel happy about our decisions, whether we're in the perfect environment or not. It all depends on how well we're aligned with values. Imagine your future out as far as you feel comfortable going. A key here is to go out as far as you feel comfortable, then go a little further. Go beyond that comfort zone and imagine something you want. This gives us a sense of direction. Tied deeply to the values, it starts to give you something to build a strong foundation on. Then you can set goals. Now, when I work with clients, I often ask them, do you have goals? Second question is, can I see your goals? The answer is always, yes, I've got goals. Yes, I know how to write goals. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, can I see them? Well, yeah, Phil, I'm not sure where they are. Can you send them to me? Maybe I actually haven't written them down. It was like 5 years ago when I wrote them down. It's the typical, quote-unquote, 5 years ago when goals were written down. Like, I've heard that story so many times, it's unbelievable. Everybody knows how to write goals. The discipline to write down the goals has not happened. Goals are something very special because if the goals are really written down in a smart way, and this is an acronym, I'll talk about it in just a second, it becomes very empowering and it can change your whole perspective. For some people, it can be life-changing to get these three things in place. Life-changing to really start moving. And it all starts with these three things in a nice progression. So let's talk about SMART goals for just a second. SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, realistically high, and time-based. Specific, measurable, attainable, realistically high, meaning just outside of your comfort zone, and time-based. You got a deadline on it. The importance of that is it starts to push you. You feel compelled, and here's a key part of it. Share them, even your personal goals, to the degree you're comfortable with and it's appropriate. Share them with other people because that builds a sense of accountability. When you do these things, you become that person with a plan. Tasks change, plans and goals do not. So your to-do list can rotate in and out, and that's okay. Things happen, new priorities come in, but your plans, your goals, this future you imagine, your values do not change. Problem solving starts to skyrocket. You know why you're doing what you do because of your values, because you know where you're heading in life. Big decisions and surround yourself with the right people. Some people go, hey, Phil, look, that sounds great if I was the person in charge, but I'm not the person in charge. My answer to that is, yes, of course you're in charge. You're in charge of your profession, your career, your life, and here's where it counts. Because even if you're in a job you don't particularly like, or if you love it, it kind of doesn't matter. On this front, if you have these things in place that are above and beyond your job, and your job is aligned with it, your personal life is aligned with it, you've just built a personal mission for yourself. And that becomes incredibly powerful, and it puts you in point of being empowered and in control, no matter what kind of nonsense happens around you. So this is an interesting aspect. For plans really don't mean much. Planning is everything. When we build plans, we have to adjust them, the specific goals, the specific activities. We've got to make adjustments to them all the time because new obstacles pop up, new issues pop up, new players come in, our jobs change. Something happens all the time. So we have to constantly be planning and making adjustments. On the other side of things, vision, this picture of the future, which is fun to sit down and imagine, but if that's all we live in, it's a dream, which is good to have, but it's just a dream. It has to come along with action. Those people who are very action-oriented and don't take the time to set out that picture of the future, action without a vision just passes the time, and you end up at the end of the day, at the end of a career, at the end of a job, it's like, what did I really accomplish? Those two together, actually the three together, planning, a good vision, and action all together is powerful. So you start with the values, build a vision of your future that you want to do. You start to build SMART goals on top of it. Then you can build action plans, prioritize, lists, and accountability on top of that. Notice what's not in here. To-do lists are nowhere in here. And there's a big reason for that. And that's because to-do lists are kind of the last thing. They're the very tactical thing at the end of the day. The real work is getting the values, vision, goals really aligned well, and the rest just kind of comes out of it. Yes, it's still a lot of work to build action plans and to-do lists, but at least you can prioritize, make judgment calls on what can help you get there and not, what's aligned, what's not, and make some choices. Very, very empowering. Big point here, this is kind of a fundamental premise of the way I coach people, and one of the things that I believe in deeply, and that is you are who you are wherever you are. In reality, you cannot really compartmentalize yourself from your professional life from your personal. It takes a lot of energy to do that, and why spend the energy doing that? Why not just be true to yourself and leverage your strengths, your talents? Don't worry too much about the blind spots. Maybe work on some weaknesses, but focus on your talents and your strengths. Make things shine for yourself and spread that throughout your whole life. Very powerful. Know yourself well. So now the question is, are you up to the task? Do you have the skills? Do you have the knowledge in place to do it? Do you have the goals, the SMART goals in place? And do you know your job? Not just your job at your work, but your job for your career, your job for everything you do. Do you know what role you want to play, and it's bigger in scope, but still incorporates that? And what kind of attitudes do you have around this? These are all fundamental aspects to upping your game. These are the basic skills that I work with my clients on so that they can up their game, really up their game. We get down right to the core and start working on it. And it's key to do that. If you do it on your own, if you do it reading books, attending things like this, fantastic. Keep doing it. Do it as much as you can. This equation is very similar to what we just looked at. You read it from right to left. Improved results is on the far right, and we all want improved results. Improved results is a direct result of positive behavior change. If we can positively change our behavior, we will get improved results. That comes from having SMART goals in place, built on those foundational things of values, aligned values, and a vision of where we want to go. Add to that knowledge and skills. Knowledge and skills, I've heard often, knowledge is power. Well, I would argue that knowledge is not power. Knowledge is simply that, knowledge. It's good to have, but the ability to execute on that knowledge, to add the skills to it, the goals to it, attitude to it, that's what makes it powerful and makes things happen. So the attitude is kind of huge because attitude can make the skills and knowledge just accentuate them, and it's a multiplying effect, both positively and negatively. It can destroy all the skills and knowledge, and it can make it huge. Look at the scale down below. The highly negative attitudes and the wildly positive attitudes on the far right. those are easy to spot. Most of us have cleaned up those a long time ago, and if we still have them, every once in a while we deal with them, and we're pretty good at dealing with those. The ones that are tricky for people that are professional and managing things is the ones in the middle, the danger zone, kind of as you get closer to zero. Those are things that are more subtle, hard to uncover. You can identify those by when you get triggered, by somebody making a comment or a situation. There's an attitude deep down in there, a belief that got stomped on, and then you have an attitude attached to that you hang on to deeply. So uncover those attitudes, shine a light on them, put a label to them, identify them, get them out in the open. It is a big first step to focusing in on the positive attitudes going forward. It's great to be, just say, oh, I have a positive attitude. That's great. But the real work is identifying those things that are holding you back and accentuating the things that can push you forward. There's some work to be done on that for most people. Myself, I had a lot of those in the middle that were like, that's not a negative attitude. Well, it turned out probably I could argue it was a positive attitude, just not positive enough. So let's talk about upping your game and getting in control, the real nuts and bolts of it. Now remember that slide that you wrote down earlier. Pull out your notes. So with no clear direction, don't know what I don't know, that comes down to the real tactics around that is to establish a vision and really understand and define your values. Not organized, things are crazy around here. Get a plan. Create some goals, smart goals. Maybe time management is an issue, and time management is a series of decisions and prioritization. It's a whole subject into itself, and as we all know, and it can be tricky to do, some people have it nailed really well. But if that's your issue, make a note of it. Maybe it's teamwork. Working hard in different directions is useless. And if you're not working together as a team, getting everybody pushing in the same direction, that's when magic starts to happen. Don't know what's expected or wanted. Goals are poorly communicated. Often that's from upper management or the boss or the owner. Goals are, or whoever it is, goals are not communicated well. And we might say, Phil, how in the world could I do that? That's not me who's not communicating it. I would argue, there's always an opportunity to go sit down and try to understand what they have in mind, even if they cannot articulate it well, or if they said it once 3 months ago and thought they were done. Go find out. Poor self-image, no balance in my life, personal and professional development, and understanding and accepting self. So I'd like you to pull out your notes and map those notes onto this and really start to map it into it and take a look at what you could do for yourself in the next few days, in the next few weeks, whatever, what you can do to pull those two together and start to really understand what your out-of-control mode is. And these slides, I have this particular one posted. I refer to it all the time, and I go, oh, yeah, okay, here's where I fell down. Not doing so well. Pay attention to this aspect. Start to build it back up. So what's your game? Are you in it for the short game, or are you in it for the long game? Here's this character, Han Solo out of Star Wars, if you're a Star Wars fan. He would say this to Princess Leia in the first show. Look, I ain't in this for your revolution. Not in it for you, princess. I expect to be well paid. I'm in it for the money. Well, he was short-sighted, self-centered, just kind of a jerk at the beginning. By the end of the show, he was in it for the long game. And there was a growth period for him where he started to adopt this longer-term vision and start to understand his values and the alignment. And the question is, when we're at work, are we in it for the short game or the long game? And are we aligned with our true values and truly where we want to go in our career and in our life? The more we get that alignment, the more we're in it for the long game. Okay, so we're going to wrap up here in just a couple minutes. And what I wanted to do is, for those who want more, this is the offer. So if you want to bug out, go ahead. By the way, that's last summer, middle of August, where it's really hot, just outside of Portland, Oregon. My daughter, we're up about 8,000 feet up high and snow all over the place, climbing. It was pretty fun. So here's the offer. I've got 4 weeks, 1 hour a week, Up Your Game workshop where we dive into the details of what we touched on today. learn how to get out of your own way, deal with obstacles, collaborate and communicate to get things done, and deal with those difficult to talk to people. Get control over your time. Perfect for professionals, new managers, experienced managers to hone their skills. Maybe you know somebody who could use some help. To find out more, you can email me, phil@philbride.com. Mention what you're talking about. Or you could go directly to philbride.com/shop. Use the coupon Office MVPs, and that will give you a heck of a deal on this. Normally I charge about $500 for this. It's just under $200. A great deal. So with that, I'll hang around for a few minutes if anybody has questions. Phil Bride, philbride.com, business coaching. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. Have a great day, everyone.